I'm Welton Gaddy, host of State of Belief Radio, with our continuing coverage of the 2016 Republican National Convention in Cleveland, Ohio. It's Thursday, July 21st, and I'm joined by Rabbi Jack Moline, president of Interfaith Alliance. Jack, welcome.
Thank you, Welton. Glad to be back.
Listen, I know that you are itching to talk about the Ted Cruz debacle last night, and so let's just start right there.
You know, I'm itching to talk about it, not because it was a debacle for Senator Cruz or for the Republicans, but because I was absolutely delighted to hear him endorse our agenda of religious freedom. He made in the course of his remarks an inclusive statement about the role of minorities and atheists in our country, and talked about the importance of conscience in voting in the coming election, not voting along party lines, but voting on issues, matter of conscience, however the conscience is informed. And if I can make that the new Ted Cruz, he may be a candidate we take a serious look at next year.
You know, Jack, I was impressed by the definitions that he gave to religious freedom. And I have to say, I found them somewhat contradictory to the way he had defined religious freedom during his campaign. And I know you're aware more than almost anyone else that religious freedom has become a term that can be defined in some ways that make it a contradiction to religious freedom. Did you have any sense of that last night?
So I don't pretend that I can climb into to Senator Cruz's head or suss out his motives in the remarks that he made. He has certainly, as you've said, defined religious freedom differently as something which is a license to discriminate rather than an extension of the rights and freedoms that inhere in being an American citizen. So I don't know whether he spoke those words as a means of contrast to what's been going on, whether he took a closer look at the Constitution, in which he is a genuine expert, and came to that conclusion, or whether that was just a cynical framing of the issue to deflect from the truly awful things he said about what the nature of religious freedom might be. I'm willing always to take people at their word. And I hope that as the years go on, I expect Senator Cruz will be around for a long time. I hope that we're able to bring those words back to him and ask him to reaffirm the statements he made last night.
Yeah, and my question about that was in no way to take anything away from what he did say, because it was a broader, much more comprehensive, and much more inclusive understanding of religious freedom than we had heard in the past, and I celebrate that as well.
Yes, and I have to say that that combined with the gorgeous benediction that the Patriarch Demetrios gave at the end of the evening. I'm guessing a lot of people had turned off the television by then because it was past 11 o'clock. But that benediction was simply gorgeous. It didn't ignore the particular circumstances in which it was delivered, but it was inclusive, and it lifted people up to the best aspirations, not just of the Greek Orthodox tradition, but of faith in general.
Yes, I fully agree. I do think there are political ramifications related to the Cruz speech that we ought to touch on. The reaction was, I think, the absolute last gasp for any remaining never Trump delegates. So does this mean that Trump is now the official evangelical candidate?
Well, I can't answer that question. We need to find an evangelical who's willing to take a crack at it. But it seems to me that Senator Cruz was booed off the stage by a substantial portion of the people who were in that arena. Right. And unless we see a sudden shift of evangelicals to the Democratic ticket, I suspect that they will be supporting the man they consider to represent their values, if not their practices, better than the woman who they have associated with criminal activity and satanic presence.
Jack, I found it alarming to see the fierce negative reaction to Cruz, the rush to get at him and his wife, kind of an attack mode. I know there were some people surprised by that. I frankly wasn't. You can't incite a crowd to a fever pitch of rage and then expect that same crowd to be eager to be passive about a speech like that or to give him the right to do that. They had got this whole group of people so worked up about anyone who disagrees with them that even one of their own was attacked by that. That really does bother me.
So I think it's worth you and I having a longer conversation about the climate of political discourse after next week, after the second opportunity to evaluate these things is going on. But I hope that people recognize that the kind of anger and antagonism that has been generated by this campaign rhetoric is not something you can switch on and off at will. And that when people get used to being angry, they don't much care who they're angry at.
Do you have any expectations about what may happen on this last night of the convention?
Well, given the hour at which you and I have decided to speak tonight, my hope, if not my expectation, is that things will be on time. But I think the only thing that you can say dependably about a Donald Trump speech is that you can't depend on anything in particular. I am hoping, and perhaps hoping against hope, that we are finally going to see some articulation of what he hopes to accomplish and how he hopes to accomplish it, should he be elected President of the United States. I already know how he feels about Secretary Clinton, so I'm hoping he doesn't have to spend a lot of time on that.
Jack, as a person of faith, as a person who is devoted to this nation, and as a person who is the president of Interfaith Alliance, what are your feelings thus far about this convention?
From the point of view of my work with Interfaith Alliance and my personal commitment to the values of religious freedom, I am distressed at hearing the speakers at the convention and in the streets and in the commentaries talk out of both sides of their mouth about religious freedom. There is lip service that is paid to it, and yet so many of the speakers got up and introduced themselves as Governor Pence did last night as Christians first, and put their religious identity ahead of the Constitution that they are going to support, protect, and defend if they're elected to public office. That's very distressing to me. What is hopeful about that, in addition to Senator Cruz's remarks last night, is that there does seem to be a recognition dawning, perhaps slowly, on people that if we're going to make a go of this as the pluralistic society that we are, we have to be a little more respectful of people and their differences. And so, in that sense, given what I've heard from so many speakers at the convention, Welton, I just want to go on record as saying right now, in the middle of July, that I hope you have a Merry Christmas and not just a happy holiday.
Rabbi Jack Moline, President, Interfaith Alliance. We'll be talking again later tonight. I'm Welton Gaddy for State of Belief Radio.